this tutorial I will show you how to knit the Pepperberry pattern. So the part that I'm calling the Pepperberry pattern is this pattern here, and one repeat of the stitch pattern is just this part here, and it's worked over 5 rows. And in this tutorial I am specifically showing you how to knit this stitch pattern when working in the round. I'm working on round 1 of the stitch pattern, and it consists of knit 1, slip 3 with yarn in front, knit 1, and you are just repeating these steps: slip 3 with yarn in front, knit 1, slip 3, and I should also add slip 3 purlwise with yarn in front, knit 1, and you just work like that across the round. And most important thing when you're working this stitch pattern is that you want to keep these floats quite loose. You want to have a little bit of slack in them so that when you are picking them up on the last round, round 5, you will create this lovely shape here. If they're too tight, it'll start pulling the work in, and it'll also create a shallower angle here. So that is really important for the stitch pattern, and also the fabric. You don't want it pulling in where you have the stitch pattern. Round 2 of the stitch pattern, this is worked with main color, and you slip all the contrast color stitches with yarn in back. Again, mindful of the float length. These ones you don't need them especially long, but still good to be mindful of it. You knit 3, you slip the contrast color stitch, and knit 3, slip the contrast color stitch, and knit 3. So at this point it looks very similar to how it looked right after the first contrast color round, and the only way you can really tell a difference is that you can see that little float there. Tells you that the last worked round was actually a main color round there. So this is now round 3 of the stitch pattern, and this is worked with contrast color, and if you're working the jumper, this will be contrast color 2, that one's contrast color 1, and with the mittens you're actually using the same contrast color for both of these rounds, and it is exactly the same as round 1. Knit 1, slip 3 purlwise with yarn in front, knit 1, and again the float tension is important, but here it's a little bit easier. You'll just make sure that it matches, the float lengths are matching, so one of them is not pulling or sagging. And I kind of do that by kind of stretching out the work a little bit as I'm going along. Like so. Round 4 of the stitch pattern. This one's worked with the main color, and it is just knit across. And this time you are knitting all the stitches. So the reason on round 2 you are slipping the contrast color stitch is that you get this really neat stack of the 2 contrast color stitches here, whereas if you were knitting across the whole round, on round 2 you would actually have a main color stitch tucked in there between them. So That was a design choice just to make it look a little bit neater. But with this round, you don't need to do that. So that's how it looks. Round 5 of stitch pattern, and this is the round that we're actually working the dip stitches. So what we have here now is round 1 and 3 worked in the contrast colors, and there's 2 MC rounds, one between them and then one after. And we're working with contrast color 3 for the jumper and contrast color 2 for the mitts. And this is really the round that brings the stitch pattern together. So it begins, if you're starting the round, it starts with 2 slip stitches, and you're slipping purlwise with yarn in back. And then next we're going to make the dip stitch, which is called, or the abbreviation is knit 1 or knit ULS. And you work that by going under the floats, knitting the following stitch, and then bringing it underneath the floats, bringing it back to the needle like that. And here you also want to be mindful of the float length. It doesn't have to be as loose as the front floats because it's not going to be picked up, but it is still important that it is relaxed, so these stitches are not pulling in. They kind of start disappearing into the fabric if there's no slack in that float, just a little bit. So the repeating pattern then is slip 3 purlwise with yarn in back, knit 1 ULS, slip 3, knit ULS, and I like to keep checking that the floats are doing okay. And that's how it looks. That's the one repeat of the Pepperberry pattern completed right there. And then this is, if you look at the stitch pattern after you have completed a little bit of stockinette, you kind of see the full effect there.